The war had raged for years. Across the stars, humanity fought against the Zereth Dominion, an alien empire known for its ruthless conquests. Millions had died on both sides. Now the final battle had come. The human fleet had pushed deep into Zereth territory, and their last stronghold was on the brink of collapse. Captain Elias Voss led a team of elite soldiers through the ruined corridors of the enemy fortress. The air was thick with smoke, the walls burned and broken from the bombardment. The sounds of distant gunfire echoed through the halls, but Elias focused on one thing: reaching the central chamber. That was where the Zereth Queen was hiding. His orders were clear: eliminate her. Elias had seen what the Zereth did to human colonies. He had lost friends, seen innocent people suffer. The thought of ending this war once and for all should have given him satisfaction. But as he moved forward, something in his heart felt unsettled. His team reached the massive doors of the central chamber. Two soldiers planted charges on the entrance, and with a loud explosion, the heavy doors were blown open. Elias stormed in, rifle raised, expecting a final battle. Instead, he found silence. The grand chamber was in ruins. Shattered columns and fallen banners of the Zereth Dominion lay scattered across the floor, and at the center of the destruction, slumped against a broken throne, was the Zereth Queen herself. She was wounded, her silver-blue armor cracked, deep gashes on her arms. Her once glowing eyes were dim, her breathing slow and weak. She was alone. Her guards had either fled or died protecting her. One of Elias's soldiers stepped forward, aiming his weapon. "She's finished, Captain. Let's end this." Elias hesitated. He looked at the alien queen. She wasn't fighting back. She wasn't begging for mercy either. She just stared at him, exhausted, waiting for the final moment. His fingers tightened around the trigger. It would be so easy. One shot, and the war would be over. But something felt wrong. He had seen Zereth warriors die before, but never like this. She wasn't an enemy now, just a defeated ruler, too tired to resist. "Sir," his soldier asked, confused by the delay. Elias lowered his weapon. "Stand down." The team exchanged shocked looks. "What?" "Captain, she's the enemy." "We don't kill unarmed prisoners," Elias said firmly. "She's coming with us." The soldiers hesitated, but they followed his orders. They secured the queen in restraints, though she was too weak to resist. As they carried her out, she finally spoke, her voice hoarse but steady. "You are different from the others." Elias didn't respond. He wasn't sure why he had spared her. Maybe it was mercy. Maybe it was curiosity. But deep down, he had a feeling this choice would change everything. The war was over. Or at least, that's what the human commanders believed. The Zereth Dominion had fallen, their forces scattered. But Elias Voss knew better. Something about this victory felt incomplete. And now, with the captured Zereth Queen in his hands, things were about to get even more complicated. The human soldiers dragged Queen Soraya through the battlefield toward the extraction point. She was weak, barely able to stand. The silver-blue armor she wore was cracked, dried blood on her skin. But despite her injuries, she held her head high. Her glowing violet eyes burned with quiet defiance. Elias watched her carefully. She had barely spoken since her capture. Most prisoners begged for their lives or cursed their captors. But not her. She just observed, silent, calculating. One of Elias's men, Corporal Rains, sneered. "I don't understand why we're keeping her alive, Captain. The command ordered her execution." "We're not executioners," Elias replied. Rains scoffed. "She'd have killed you without a second thought." "Maybe," Elias admitted, "but she didn't." The team boarded the transport shuttle, and the engines roared to life. As they ascended through the thick smoke of the battlefield, Elias glanced at the queen. She met his gaze without fear. "You think sparing me was wise?" she asked at last. Elias folded his arms. "I don't know yet." Soraya smirked slightly but said nothing more. Aboard the battleship, The ship Vanguard was one of the most powerful vessels in the human fleet. As soon as they docked, word of Soraya's capture spread through the ranks like wildfire. Soldiers gathered in the corridors, whispering, pointing. Elias escorted her personally to the detention chamber. The room was cold and metallic, reinforced with energy barriers. He gestured for her to enter. Soraya turned to them. "They will recover in a few minutes. We must leave now." Elias didn't waste a second. He punched in the coordinates and sent the ship into hyperspace. The stars blurred into streaks of light. They had escaped. For now, a moment of silence. As the ship stabilized in hyperspace, Elias turned to Soraya. "What did you just do?" Soraya's expression was calm. "A mental disruption. My kind can interfere with neural signals. I only stalled them, not harmed them." Harper shook her head in disbelief. "You could have done that from the start." Soraya's eyes darkened. "No, it only works in close range, and it takes a lot of energy." Elias exhaled. "Well, it saved our lives." Soraya studied him. "You trusted me back there, even when your own people turned against you." Elias met her gaze. "Because I believe there's more to this war than what we were told." For a moment, she held his gaze. Then she nodded. Harper groaned and leaned back in her seat. "We're fugitives now. Where do we go from here?" Elias checked the star map. "There's only one place we can go." Soraya's eyes lit up. "The Xilari homeworld." Elias nodded. "Let's hope they welcome us." As the ship soared through hyperspace, one thing was clear. The war was far from over, and the real truth was just beginning. The hum of the ship's engines filled the small cockpit as Elias, Harper, and Soraya stared at the Xilari homeworld appearing on the view screen. A massive golden planet covered in sprawling cities and glowing rivers stretched out below them. Unlike Earth's blue oceans and green forests, the Xilari world was a mix of silver structures and shimmering energy fields. Harper leaned forward, eyes wide. "I can't believe we actually made it." Elias tightened his grip on the controls. "We're not safe yet. The human fleet might still be tracking us." Soraya placed a hand on his shoulder. "Not here. My people will protect us." Elias sighed. "I hope you're right." As they descended, a squadron of Xilari ships approached. Sleek, crescent-shaped vessels moved into formation, their golden hulls reflecting the planet's light. A voice crackled through the comms. "Unidentified vessel, state your purpose." Soraya stepped forward. "This is Queen Soraya. I have returned." There was a long silence. Then the voice returned, this time shaken with surprise. "Your Majesty, we thought you were dead." Elias exchanged a glance with Harper. This was it. If the Xilari didn't believe Soraya, they were doomed. The comms officer hesitated before responding again. "You are cleared for landing. Welcome home, Your Majesty." A dangerous welcome. The ship touched down on a massive floating platform surrounded by towering spires of crystal and metal. Xilari warriors stood in formation, their armor gleaming under the artificial sun. Elias and Harper followed Soraya down the ramp, stepping onto the strange alien world for the first time. The warriors knelt as Soraya passed, whispering in their native tongue. Harper nudged Elias. "Looks like she wasn't lying about being a queen." Elias smirked. "Yeah, but I don't think everyone's happy to see her." At the far end of the landing pad, a tall Xilari male approached, flanked by guards. His golden eyes burned with suspicion. "Soraya," he said, his voice cold. "You should not have returned." Soraya stood firm. "Lord Azek, I bring news of a great danger." Azek's gaze flicked to Elias and Harper. "And humans. You trust them." Soraya's expression remained calm. "They saved my life, and they know the truth about the war." Azek narrowed his eyes. "Then you should come with me. The High Council must decide your fate." Elias glanced at Harper. "That doesn't sound good." Harper sighed. "Yeah, but we don't have a choice. Before the Council, The High Council chamber was massive, with floating platforms connected by glowing bridges. 12 Scifi leaders sat in a half-circle, their robes shimmering like liquid metal. Elias and Harper stood behind Soraya as she addressed them. "I was betrayed by my own people," Soraya began. "A secret faction within our military is manipulating this war. They want to erase humanity, not for survival, but for power." The council members whispered among themselves. One of them, an elderly Xilari with glowing blue eyes, spoke. "And what proof do you have?" Soraya gestured to Elias. Elias stepped forward. "We were attacked by human warships, but Soraya stopped them without killing anyone. If she were truly our enemy, she wouldn't have spared them." The council murmured again. Another member, a sharp-featured female, leaned forward. "Even if what you say is true, why should we trust these humans?" Harper crossed her arms. "Because we risked everything to bring Soraya here. The human military is hunting us down. If we were lying, we'd be dead by now." The room fell silent. Then, Lord Azek spoke again. "You expect us to believe that a faction of our own people is willing to destroy both our species?" Soraya's voice was calm but firm. "Yes, and if we do nothing, the real enemy will win." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. The elderly Xilari sighed. "This is a dangerous claim. If you are right, then more is coming." Azek's golden eyes glowed. "We need proof before we act." Soraya hesitated, then nodded. "Then we must go to the Xilari war archives. The records will show the hidden plans." The council murmured in agreement. But before anyone could move, a loud explosion rocked the chamber. The doors burst open. Xilari soldiers in black armor stormed in, weapons raised. A coup had begun. "Betrayal." A booming voice echoed through the chamber. "Soraya has betrayed us. Seize her and the humans." Elias drew his weapon instinctively, but Soraya grabbed his arm. "No. If you fire, they'll kill us all." The black-armored soldiers advanced. The council members gasped, some standing in defiance, others frozen in fear. Azek stepped forward, his eyes burning with rage. "Traitors." But before he could act, a soldier struck him down with the butt of a rifle. Harper took a step back. "Okay, this is bad." Soraya clenched her fists. "I didn't expect them to move so quickly." Elias scanned the room. There was no way they could fight all of them. He turned to Soraya. "What do we do?" Soraya's violet eyes glowed. "We run." Elias didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed Harper's hand and sprinted toward the nearest exit. Soraya followed, her long robes flowing behind her. Blaster fire erupted, striking the walls as the trio ducked and weaved through the chaos. Azek, still weak from the attack, called after them. "Go to the archives. Find the truth." Elias nodded before vanishing down a dark corridor. Into the shadows. They ran through the underground tunnels beneath the council chamber. The sounds of battle echoed above them. Harper gasped for breath. "We are officially the most wanted people in 2 galaxies." Elias grinned despite the danger. "Well, at least we're consistent." Soraya didn't smile. "We must reach the war archives. If we don't expose the truth now, it will be too late." Elias looked ahead into the darkness. "Then let's move." With no time to waste, they disappeared into the shadows, heading toward their only hope for survival. The final battle was coming, and they had to be ready. The underground tunnel stretched before them, dimly lit by the faint glow of energy conduits running along the walls. Elias, Harper, and Soraya moved swiftly, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Behind them, the distant sounds of battle raged through the Xilari capital, shaking the ground beneath them. Elias clenched his jaw. Beckett was one of the best tacticians in the fleet. There was no way they could fight against him. But surrendering was not an option. Soraya stepped forward. "Let me speak." Elias hesitated before opening the channel. Soraya's voice was calm yet commanding. "This is Queen Soraya of the Xilari Dominion. Humanity has been deceived. The true enemy is awakening, and if you execute me, you will doom your own kind. Silence. Then, Beckett's voice returned, cold and firm. Nice try. But we're not interested in alien lies. Soraya exhaled slowly. They won't listen. Elias narrowed his eyes at the screen. There was one way out. He switched off the comms. We're going to run for it. Harper's jaw dropped. Through a fleet of warships. Are you insane? Elias punched in new coordinates. We don't have a choice. Soraya studied him. You have a plan. Elias smirked. Always. Dodging fire. As the human fleet closed in, Elias slammed the thrusters forward. The transport ship lurched ahead, weaving through the open space between the warships. The fleet reacted instantly. Red warning lights flashed inside the cockpit. Missiles incoming. Elias gritted his teeth and twisted the ship into a sharp roll, barely dodging the first barrage. Harper clutched her seat. Elias, we are in a cargo ship. This thing isn't made for dodging missiles. Elias ignored her and focused on the controls. He had trained for combat flying, but this ship was slower, heavier. One wrong move, and they were gone. The comms crackled again. Last warning, Voss. Surrender. You cannot escape. Elias shut off the comms completely. A sudden explosion rocked the ship. A missile had clipped their left wing. Damage report, he shouted. Harper checked the systems. Shields at 30%. One more hit, and we're done for. Soraya placed a hand on Elias' shoulder. Head for that asteroid field. Elias followed her gaze. A dense asteroid cluster was just ahead. It was dangerous, but it was their only chance. Hold on, Elias muttered, and he dove into the field. Through the asteroids. The ship zigzagged between giant chunks of rock. Missiles chased after them, but many exploded against the floating debris. Harper let out a nervous laugh. I can't believe this is actually working. Elias grinned, dodging another asteroid. Never doubt me. But the battlecruiser was still following. It wasn't stopping. Soraya stepped forward. I can stop them. Elias frowned. How? She placed a hand on the control panel and closed her eyes. A strange hum filled the cockpit. The lights flickered. Then, suddenly, the human ships froze in place. Even the missiles stopped midair. Elias' eyes widened. What did you? Soraya exhaled and pulled her hand back. The hum stopped. The human ships powered down, floating lifelessly in space. Elias and Harper exchanged stunned looks. Elias, Harper, and Soraya emerged from the archives just in time to see the Loyalist forces secure the capital. The war was over before it could truly begin. Soraya turned to Elias and Harper. You saved my people today. You saved both our worlds. Elias grinned. Guess that means we're even. Harper smirked. Almost. A new future. Days later, the peace treaty was signed between humanity and the Xilari. The war had ended before it could destroy both civilizations. Soraya was officially crowned Queen of the Xilari, her leadership restored. She stood before her people, addressing both species. We were deceived. We fought a war we did not need. But now we will build a future together. Elias and Harper stood among the human delegation, watching as history was made. Harper nudged Elias. So, what now? Elias chuckled. I don't know about you, but I think I deserve a vacation. Soraya approached them, a warm smile on her face. Wherever you go, know that you will always have a place among the Xilari. Elias grinned. Good to know, but let's hope we don't have to save an alien queen again anytime soon. Soraya laughed. Then let's work to make sure that never happens. As the sun set over the Xilari capital, the war became a distant memory, and a new era of peace began. The end. Harper crossed her arms. You can't seriously believe her. The Zereth wiped out entire colonies, killed millions. Now she wants us to think they were protecting us. Elias exhaled slowly. I don't know. But I need to find out the truth. Harper shook her head. The higher-ups won't like this. Command already sent orders. The Queen is to be executed within the next 48 hours. Elias's jaw tightened. He had expected this. The war was over, and the human leaders wanted a clear ending. Keeping Soraya alive would complicate things. But now, something inside him refused to let that happen. If she dies, we lose any chance of knowing what really happened, Elias said. Harper hesitated. So what do you want to do? Elias looked back toward the detention chamber. The answer was clear. I'm going to get her out of here. Elias Voss sat in his quarters, staring at the command tablet in front of him. The order was clear. Queen Soraya was to be executed in 48 hours. No trial, no questions. The war was over, and humanity wanted closure. But something about it felt wrong. If Soraya was telling the truth, then humanity had been fighting the wrong war. And worse, something far more dangerous was now awake. Elias ran a hand through his short, dark hair and sighed. His mind raced through possibilities. If he wanted answers, he had to act fast. A soft knock at the door broke his thoughts. Lieutenant Harper stepped inside, her face tense. You're really going through with this, aren't you? Elias nodded. I need to get her off this ship. Harper sighed, closing the door behind her. You do realize this is treason. I know. She stared at him for a long moment before shaking her head. You're insane. Elias smirked. Maybe. Harper crossed her arms. What's the plan? The only way out. The Vanguard was a heavily secured ship. Cameras, guards, security protocols. Getting Soraya out unnoticed would be nearly impossible. But Elias had been part of special operations before. He knew that no system was perfect. There's a supply transport leaving the ship in 3 hours, Elias explained. It's heading to a neutral station before returning to Earth. If we can get Soraya on board, she'll be out of reach before Command realizes she's gone. Harper frowned. And how do we get past the guards? Elias tapped on his tablet, bringing up a security layout. I'll take out the cameras in the detention area. Once they're down, I'll unlock her cell and escort her to the hangar. You'll be waiting with a stolen clearance code to get her aboard. Harper exhaled sharply. This is insane. Elias met her gaze. You don't have to help me. She rolled her eyes. Like I'm going to let you do this alone. Elias felt a small wave of relief. He wasn't sure he could pull this off without her. Now, all that was left was executing the plan. Breaking the chains. Elias moved quickly, navigating through the lower decks of the ship. The detention chamber was heavily guarded, but he had timed the security shift perfectly. For 5 minutes, there would be no patrols in the area. Stopping outside the control panel, he pulled out a small hacking device and attached it to the system. The lights flickered, and for a brief moment, the security cameras went dark. This was his chance. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the detention chamber. Soraya was sitting on the metal bench, calm as ever. When she saw him, her lips curled into a slight smile. I was beginning to think you changed your mind, she said. Elias tapped a few commands on the panel, and the energy barrier vanished. Come on, we don't have much time. She stood gracefully, her violet eyes watching him curiously. You do realize what you're doing, don't you? Elias nodded. Yeah, I'm probably throwing my whole career away. Soraya stepped closer, looking up at him. Then why? Elias hesitated before answering. Because I need to know the truth. For a moment, Soraya studied him as if trying to understand his heart. Then she nodded. Let's go. She stepped inside without hesitation. Do you expect me to beg for my life, human? Elias sighed. No, but I do expect you to cooperate. Soraya tilted her head slightly, amused. And if I don't? Then you stay locked up here until the generals decide your fate. She chuckled softly, shaking her head. You humans are strange. You invade, destroy, and then act as if mercy is a gift only you can give. Elias frowned. I didn't have to save you. No, you didn't, she admitted, which is why I am curious. What do you want from me? Elias had been asking himself the same question. The war had taken everything from both sides. And yet, looking at Soraya now, he wasn't sure if executing her would have solved anything. I want answers, he finally said. Why did the Zareth start this war? What was your real goal? Soraya leaned against the wall, studying him. And if I refuse? Then we both waste time. A long silence passed between them. Then, surprisingly, she nodded. Very well, Captain, but if I give you answers, I expect something in return. Elias raised an eyebrow. You're in no position to make demands. She smirked again. Perhaps not, but you wouldn't have spared me if you weren't different from your kind. Let's see how different you really are. Elias wasn't sure what she meant, but one thing was certain. Keeping her alive was going to be more dangerous than he had thought. And deep down, he had a feeling his decision would change the future of both their people. Inside the cold metal walls of the detention chamber, Queen Soraya sat with her back straight, her violet eyes never leaving Captain Ilias Voss. The glowing energy barrier separating them flickered slightly, casting soft shadows across her face. Despite her injuries and captivity, she carried herself with an air of quiet strength. Elias had interrogated prisoners before, but none like her. She wasn't afraid, nor was she angry. She simply observed him, waiting. You said you would give me answers, Elias reminded her. Soraya tilted her head slightly. And you promised something in return. Elias crossed his arms. That depends on what you tell me. She smirked. Of course. She leaned back slightly, her expression turning thoughtful. Tell me, Captain, what do your leaders believe this war was about? Elias frowned. They believe the Zareth Dominion attacked human colonies without provocation. You were expanding your empire, and we were in the way. Soraya exhaled softly, as if amused. That is what your leaders told you. Elias narrowed his eyes. Are you saying that's not true? Soraya was silent for a moment before she finally spoke. The Zareth Dominion does not start wars without reason. Your people were advancing into regions of space we had long protected. There were things in the darkness, Captain. Things that should never be disturbed. Elias frowned. That sounds like an excuse for war. Soraya met his gaze. Perhaps, but what if I told you that humanity was never the true enemy? Elias remained quiet. She was playing a dangerous game, half-truths, mysteries, but something in his gut told him she wasn't lying. What do you mean? He asked. Soraya leaned forward slightly. There is something ancient in this galaxy, Captain. Something that neither your people nor mine truly understand. We were fighting to keep it contained. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. What is it? Soraya's eyes darkened. A force older than either of our civilizations. And now, because of this war, it has awakened. A dangerous truth. Elias left the detention chamber deep in thought. If Soraya was telling the truth, then everything humanity believed about the war was wrong. But could he trust her? As he walked down the dimly lit corridor, he found Lieutenant Harper waiting for him. She was one of the few officers he trusted. She's playing mind games with you, Captain, Harper warned. She's trying to manipulate you. Maybe, Elias admitted. But what if she's right? Harper exhaled sharply. How much further? Soraya's violet eyes flickered with urgency. Not far. The war archives are just beyond this passage. Elias scanned the tunnel ahead. Let's hope we're not walking into a trap. They turned a corner and froze. A group of black-armored Siluri soldiers stood guard before a towering doorway, the entrance to the war archives. Harper whispered, "Looks like they expected us." Elias narrowed his eyes. "We have to get inside. That archive is our only chance." Soraya clenched her fists. Then we fight. The battle at the war archives. Before the guards could react, Elias rushed forward, tackling the nearest soldier. The Exilari warrior staggered but quickly countered, swinging his energy staff toward Elias' head. Elias barely dodged. He grabbed the weapon's handle and yanked it free, knocking the soldier down with a sharp kick. Meanwhile, Harper pulled out her sidearm and fired precision shots, forcing the other soldiers to take cover. Soraya moved like lightning, her royal combat training taking over. She struck with deadly accuracy, disabling 2 guards before they could even raise their weapons. The last soldier turned to flee, but Soraya grabbed him by the collar. "Tell me," she demanded, "who ordered you to guard this place?" The soldier hesitated, his golden eyes flickering with fear. It was Commander Valcor. "He's leading the coup." Soraya's face darkened. "Then we don't have much time." She knocked the soldier unconscious and turned to Elias and Harper. "Inside. Now." The truth is revealed. The doors hissed open, revealing a vast chamber lined with glowing blue data towers. The air hummed with energy as streams of information flowed across the walls. Soraya stepped forward and placed her palm on a control panel. "I will extract the files." Elias and Harper stood guard as the chamber's security systems whirred to life, scanning Soraya's identity. A deep voice boomed from the speakers. "Access granted. Welcome, Queen Soraya." The holographic display flickered, revealing classified war records, tactical plans, secret communications, and something far more dangerous. Harper's eyes widened. "What is that?" Elias leaned in. "Looks like a directive, ordering the destruction of Earth." Soraya's expression turned grim. "This is proof. The war was never about survival. It was about control. Someone in the auxiliary leadership wanted humanity gone." Elias clenched his fists. "Who is behind it?" Soraya scrolled through the data. Then her face froze in shock. "Commander Valcor." Harper's jaw tightened. "Then we need to stop him. Right now." Soraya nodded. "We take this evidence to the council. If we expose him, the coup will collapse." Elias smirked. "And how do we get past an army of soldiers waiting to kill us?" Soraya's violet eyes burned with determination. "We don't fight them." She raised her wrist communicator and spoke. "To all auxiliary forces loyal to the throne, this is Queen Soraya. I have uncovered the truth. Commander Valcor is a traitor. He has deceived us all. Spread this message across the city." She uploaded the files to the auxiliary communication network, broadcasting the evidence to every citizen and soldier. Moments later, alarms blared across the capital. The fall of Valcor. Outside, the battlefield shifted. Loyalist auxiliary forces turned against Valcor's soldiers, realizing they had been deceived. The once organized coup descended into chaos. Valcor himself stormed into the council chamber, his golden armor glinting with rage. "Soraya," he bellowed, "you dare betray your own kind." Soraya stepped forward, calm and unwavering. "You betrayed us first." Valcor's face twisted with anger. "Auxiliary must be superior. Humanity is a disease that must be." Before he could finish, a blast of energy struck him in the chest. Lord Azek stood behind him, weapon raised. Enough. Valcor collapsed, his rule overthrown in an instant. Race against time. Elias led Soraya through the dim corridors, moving quickly but carefully. The ship was massive, but he knew every passage, every blind spot. So far, no alarms. But as they approached the hangar, Harper's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Elias, we have a problem." His stomach tightened. "What is it?" "Security's been increased. There are 2 extra guards at the entrance." Elias clenched his jaw. They were running out of time. Soraya stepped beside him. "I can handle them," she whispered. Elias frowned. "No killing." She smirked. "Who said anything about killing?" Before he could stop her, she stepped forward. Her violet eyes glowed faintly. And suddenly, the 2 guards stiffened, their expressions going blank. They turned to each other, mumbled something incoherent, and then walked away. Elias blinked. What just happened? Soraya smirked. A simple mind trick. Nothing permanent. Elias shook his head. You could have told me you could do that earlier. Where's the fun in that? She teased. Elias sighed but didn't argue. They had to move. Harper was waiting by the transport ship, her face pale. I swear, I thought we were caught. Elias motioned toward the ship. Is the clearance code ready? Harper nodded. Yeah, but we have to go now. Soraya stepped forward, pausing before boarding the ship. She turned back to Elias. You're coming, aren't you? Elias hesitated. If he left now, there was no turning back. He would be a fugitive. But if he stayed, the truth would die with Soraya. Elias took a deep breath. Then he stepped onto the ship. Harper groaned. Well, there goes our lives. The doors sealed behind them. The ship lifted off, disappearing into the vast darkness of space. The real fight was just beginning. The stolen transport ship cut through the darkness of space, heading toward the nearest neutral sector. Inside, Elias sat at the controls, gripping the thruster controls tightly. Every minute that passed without an alarm felt like a miracle. Harper paced behind him, her nerves on edge. I still can't believe we did that. Elias glanced at her, regretting it. She sighed. No, but command won't let this go. We just made ourselves the most wanted fugitives in human space. Soraya, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. They won't catch us if we move fast. Elias gave her a skeptical look. You sound pretty confident. The alien queen leaned against the bulkhead, her violet eyes scanning the ship's systems. Because I know my people. If we reach the neutral station in time, my allies will protect us. Harper crossed her arms. That's if they believe you. Soraya's lips curved into a knowing smile. They will. But before anyone could say more, a loud beeping sound echoed through the cockpit. Elias' stomach dropped. A fleet of human warships had just appeared on the scanners. They had been found, outnumbered and outgunned. Elias quickly scanned the screen. 5 destroyers, 1 battlecruiser. The Vanguard was among them. The fleet had arrived faster than he had expected. A message came through the ship's comms. A familiar voice rang through the speakers. Elias Voss. You are ordered to stand down immediately. Surrender the alien prisoner, and you will be given a fair trial. Resist, and we will open fire. Harper's face turned pale. That's Admiral Beckett. We are so dead.